Well, hello, DirtFish friends, and welcome to our coverage of round 6 of the American Rally Association, presented by DirtFish. It is David Evans, the New England Forest Rally.
Very exciting, Colin. I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to stop. He insisted we both started with this glorious picture of Colin Clark. I'm turning mine around.
And it's from a few years ago, David. I do look an awful lot younger. I really do.
Enough with that.
The New England Forest Rally, David, it is another one of those rallies, and there aren't many, but it's another one that you've also been to.
Yep, went there quite a lot of years ago, Colin. Flew into Boston, 3 hours north of Boston. It's quite offensive that every time you take a sip of tea, I'm having to look at you twice. That's enough. Yeah, and just a fabulous part of the world. I suspect that we're there, obviously, July, August, and the heat of the summer gets even better in the autumn. That's really what sort of Massachusetts, New Hampshire, that whole area is famous to stop it. For the autumn
Why
colours.
would you be offended by looking at me twice, David?
We got a bit of tape or something we can put over these. It's a fantastic part of the world. As we know, there's two kind of real hotbeds of rallying in the US. That is obviously Pacific Northwest, where we are, and the opposite corner in the Northeast. It's great place. Absolutely loved the event. Loved the place. It's a ski resort, Sunday River. Just fantastic. They have a huge concert. It's called the Big Ass Bash. One of us would fit in quite well there.
Right, so there we go.
It's a musical concert. It's great. It's got its own brewery, the Sunday River Brewery. It's a great place. Wow. One of my favourite events. They're all my favourite events.
Yeah, for sure, it's a great place to go rallying. But my goodness me, we've had 5 rounds already in this year's ARA presented by DirtFish. Let's take a look at some of the hot action from the first 5 rounds. Well, round 1 was the Snowdrift Rally, one of those quite unique events in North America. Don't forget, snow and ice, but no studs on the tyres. It's a rally for the brave and the committed. Sensationally, Mark Piatkowski and his rather modest Subaru, they took the win after the work Subaru driver Brendan Semenuk slowed with a mechanical issue on the second last stage of the rally. Well, round 2 was the 100-acre wood rally. Semenuk would be avenged on this the very next round when he inherited the 100-acre wood win from Ken Block. Block, don't forget, debuting the 2C competition Hyundai World Rally car in the US. He dominated until he hit a deer on the final stage. And the resultant damage, well, that forced him to drop his pace and to fall into second place behind our winner Semenuk. We moved on to round 3, and that was the Olympus Rally. And well, things went from bad to worse for Block on this one. Terrifying head-on crash with a tree, resulting in a huge 12G impact. And clearly, no points from round 3. Instead, it was left for Semenuk to win once again, leading home his Subaru teammate, Travis Pastrana. Round 4 was one of those classics on the ARA presented by DirtFish. It's the Oregon Trail Rally. And Block, well, he had it all to do, needing a win if he was serious about challenging for this year's championship. But that's exactly what he delivered in controlled and commanding style, shading the Subarus of Semenuk and Pastrana by just shy of a minute. Round 5 was the Southern Ohio Forest Rally, where Ken Block made it back-to-back wins in the ARA presented by DirtFish. But perhaps the highlight of the event was Will Hudson claiming an outright podium on his Rally 2 debut. So what does that all mean then in terms of our championship standings? It is Travis Pastrana who leads the way, and his lead over Brandon Semenuk, just 6 points. Ken Block is back in third, 3 points of Semenuk, 9 points of Pastrana, our leader. Tom Williams is in 4th place. Patrick Grushka is in 5th. Kyle Tilley, he's in 6th. 7th, it's Philip Wern. In 8th, Barry McKenna. In 9th is Derek Nelson. And 10th, Will Hudson. David, 9 points separating our top 3. We've seen it on every round so far. You know, the battle is intense. It's shaping up to be a really tight fight right to the finish.
It's absolutely, Colin. It's going to be a classic. And, you know, we've seen real speed from Semenuk, from Block, and from Pastrana. It's just a shame that we haven't got Barry McKenna in there as well. And also, it would have been great. We saw David Higgins, of course. We saw David Higgins back for one round in New England last year, won the event in that Ford Fiesta. definitely one of the closest, most exciting championship seasons in a long time. And I think you're just going to jump in there, don't you?
I was.
I think there's a little bit of needle coming as well. Not needle, but there's real competition between Hyundai and Subaru.
No, I think needle is the right word, David. I think needle is the right word. Subaru have had it their own way for so many years. And, you know, they put the investment in and they get the returns out of it. Block has come along this year and he's decided he's going to mix it up, and he's gone to some lengths to do that. You know, he's brought that car over, he's brought the team over effectively with him, and he wants to win. He's got one objective, and that's it.
But the thing that's also feeding into it...
I was just needling. I was needling myself there.
The thing that's fed into it and probably has made it more exciting is the fact that Seminuk's had the bad luck. You know, you look at the gearbox failure on the first round in Snowdrift, of course, 2 stages to go or something. He was leading by a long, long way. He would have had a maximum score there. And then, of course, in Ohio, Southern Ohio, in the last round, I think it was on the last stage, wasn't it? He went off, a mistake where he should have scored points for third. Without that, he'd have been kind of way ahead already. So
I'm never sure about these sorts of conversations because Ken
Block
will turn around and say, "What about the deer I hit on 100 Acre Wood?" It was 100 Acre Wood, wasn't it, where he hit the deer? So,
but that only cost him, he dropped from first to second.
Okay, fair point.
Okay, gearbox from that ruled Seminuk out completely.
Yeah.
I think, Seminuk has probably had the bad luck so far coming in. Travis, it's a difficult year for him. He had obviously that huge injury at the start of the year where his base jump went wrong. Thankfully, heaven forbid, it didn't go as wrong as any base jump could have gone. But that is bound to, physically, it's going to have an impact on you when you getting into a car. And we know that he wasn't at his maximum performance for some of the early rounds. And is there still some of that lingering doubt? You just don't know, do you?
Well, I think there has to be. It's such a physically demanding sport. And we see it particularly on these faster rallies. It takes a huge amount out of the fittest of the fit drivers. If you're anything below 100%, it has an effect. And
there's no doubt, Travis is a super fit guy. He's a proper athlete.
Which is why he's recovering so quickly.
Absolutely. But still, there are times when there's a bit of fatigue coming and it has an impact again. And for sure, I think, there's bound to be some of that.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. Listen, we obviously follow very closely at DirtFish, the World Rally Championship as well. Can you have a one-horse race? Cali Robben-Perez running away with it. I think the fact that we have 3 very competitive drivers in the ARA presented by DirtFish, with 3 rounds to go, 4 rounds to go, obviously, it's fascinating and it's wonderful to see. But, we talk an awful lot, don't we? And rightly so, about the battle for the outright wins at the very top. There are, within the ARA, a number of different classes. Now, if you're new to the ARA, which in some ways I am, it can, on the face of it, appear to be quite confusing, these different classes. So what we've done for you is we've put together a basic description of which cars fall into which categories. Open 4-wheel drive. This is the top end of what can be done in the ARA. Production-based chassis with a maximum aero allowed, but that aero has to stay within the confines of the bodywork of the car. Sequential shifts, they're allowed. Examples? Well, R5 Plus kits, proto cars, modified WRC cars, AP4 cars, and Rally 3 cars. Open 2-wheel drive. Very similar technical rules to open 4-wheel drive, but only 2-wheel drive. Examples? Seamus Burke's V6 Escort, Hooper's Lexus IS 350, and Leah Burke's R2T Fiesta. RC2, well, exactly as the name implies, running to FIA RC2 regulations. It covers R5 cars and Rally 2 cars. Naturally aspirated 4-wheel drive. Well, this is also an open class. Naturally aspirated 4-wheel drives allows competitors to build creativity and to push aero on more of a budget than the open 4-wheel drive does. Mark Pietrkowski's Impreza is an example of our naturally aspirated 4-wheel drive cars. Limited 4-wheel drive. Well, the closest thing the ARA has to a production class. It prohibits custom parts and is more or less factory spec. Texas Dave's Subaru is an example of a limited 4-wheel drive car. Limited 2-wheel drive. Well, very similar, obviously, to limited 4-wheel drive, and the cars are as good as factory spec. Engine size, well, that's limited to 1.6 litre turbocharged engines and 2.5 litre non-aspirated. Jesse Witzel's VW Rabbit, Michael Eckstein's Lexus IS250, and Tracy Gardner's Toyota Yaris all fall into this class. As we've already mentioned, certainly 3 cars here at the New England Forest Rally that we will be watching very, very closely. 2 of them Subarus, 1 of them a Hyundai. David, just give us a brief outline of this Hyundai that Ken Block's brought to the championship in terms of the technical spec and what exactly it is.
It is a World Rally car. It's a 2017. We called them the 17 cars. You know, bizarrely, we call them that. In Europe, they call them WRC Plus cars. It was a car from the era of 17 to 21. I don't know the exact provenance of the car. It came from 2C. Obviously, 2C is the team that's running it and running it very well. And it's slightly different. We saw Barry McKenna bring, and he's still got, a Fiesta World Rally car from that same era, same chassis, same look of the car. But the difference with that is that he's had to go to a stick shift. He's got a sequential gearbox in his car. But the counter to that is he's got a 2-litre engine. So Ken's stuck with the 1600cc engine, smaller restrictor than we would have seen in WRC, but he's kept the paddles. So it's this constantly, it's such a difficult job, isn't it, to equalise performance. Yeah. We've seen it in championships. They've tried to do it. Of course, ARA will try and continue to equalise performance with regulations next year where we're more based towards a Rally 2 car. But it's essentially a detuned car, Hyundai, from last year.
There you go. Obviously, Subaru with the WRX, it's a magnificent car, but it's quite clear that it has just fallen behind in terms of overall performance. Perhaps, David, fair to say that? Behind the Hyundai?
I think so. The big issue, Colin, with it is that the Subaru is a big car.
Big, heavy car.
Physically, not necessarily heavier, but it's a big car, you know, the actual proportions of it. I remember the first time when Oliver Solberg drove it back in 2019, was it 18, 19? And of course, he'd been driving a Polo, and before that, he'd been driving a Peugeot 208. And he got into this Subaru in America for the first test. And he said it was like getting into a boat. You just felt that there was, which can be really nice to feel a lot of car around you, but also in places, in some of the more technical, twisty sections, it's more difficult. Certainly the previous round in Southern Ohio, it probably didn't do Travis and Brandon any favours because it is a longer car physically to get it turned into corners. And Ken would have had a small advantage there because he'd got a more nimble car. Come to somewhere like New England where it is so quick, your preference would be for the Subaru because you've got that stability from the longer wheelbase and the longer car.
Well, ahead of the New England Forest Rally, Subaru USA have made some changes to their WRX.
We haven't developed a lot on the cars, just small incremental things over the years to just stay at the front of the pack. And recently with Barry's car and now with Ken's car, taking full advantage of where aero can be within the rule book, we've had to make a few changes and step up our game to keep the pace. We haven't done much with the front of the car, aside from the canards we did last year. But in the rear, we had a little bit of room to literally grow. So within the rule book, you can be, at the roofline or a little bit above. And we did some testing with that. And it's really tricky because you have to get the balance right. It's easy to throw a larger wing on the back, but if you take away grip from the front, the car can understeer or push or, whatever. So you have to find more downforce, but keep the balance in a happy place. So there are a couple of mechanical things we've done, a few aero things we've done, and it's just all in the name of trying to stay at the front.
If it's faster and I can still turn in the corners, I'm excited. We're going to go find out if I can turn in, though, because we got a lot more downforce in the rear.
Fascinating stuff, that, from Subaru USA. Clearly identifying the fact that this rally is a lightning-quick rally. Aero is absolutely used to the max. They are quick stages. David's mentioned it. I've mentioned it. But let's hear from Mark Piakowski as to exactly what we can expect on the stages this weekend.
So typically the roads in New England Forest Rally are very fast. They have pretty like a 2-car wide roads, a lot of embedded rocks, very interesting road surface that's characteristic to this region of the country. And so it's unlike any other event in the National Championship. With this rally, there's always a balance of going flat out versus a little bit conservative because of the terrain. And so in past runnings of it, there are certain sections of certain stages that you do have to lift or take it easy or find a different line. You can't take your typical racing line in some of these locations. So, you know, noting it correctly in the notes is very important in this rally.
So 5 stages ahead of us on day 1, David, including the famous Concord Pond.
Concord Pond. Well, you know, this event has some fabulous stages, as all of American rallying does. This is a great one. Concord Pond, quite rare though, Colin. They go through it, go into a regroup, go through it again. So, you know, immediate sort of familiarity with where they're going. Not a particularly early stage, about 11:30 in the morning, but Brandon Semenuk was immediately on the money, wasn't he?
Immediately on the money, and immediately, perhaps, feeling the benefits of those aero upgrades.
Absolutely, Cole. The aero will make a difference, but the interesting point here for me is we know there was quite a lot of rain on the Thursday, the day before, obviously Friday, Saturday rally, and you just wonder, don't you, did that help running first on the road? Did it bind the surface together a little bit? Did it give him less of a disadvantage being first on the road? But then straight back round, and who was quickest second time?
Remind me.
Ken, and it was 0.8 of a second between them on the first one. Ken Block into the lead on the second one. Immediately though, there was an awful lot of action in that stage. You know, they weren't particularly long stages, but there was a lot going on in there.
But I think what the opening couple of stages showed us, David, was just how close it was going to be. You know, we didn't have a situation where one driver was immediately stretching out a lead. As you say, Semenuk won, Block won, Pastrana was there or thereabouts.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was the way that first day would play out.
Yeah, but Travis Pastrana, he was there or thereabouts, but he knew at the first service there was a bit more work to do.
I got to the end of the first stage, I thought that was a really good stage, and I thought, you know, I didn't really scare myself one time. Rhea and I got to the end, and it was just super smooth. And you know, we lost 4 seconds to Brandon, 3 seconds to Ken. Thought, all right, we'll pick it up this time. So we were much more aggressive the second time through. Must have overdriven some of the exits. I mean, it's so wild because everyone's like, oh, you got to be more aggressive. I'm like, not really. Like Brandon's driving so spot on. You're taking all the chances and you're getting right up. But if you overshoot one corner where you're a little bit sideways, you lose, you know, 2-3 tenths down that straightaway. That's, you know, we're talking, you know, half a second, a quarter second, a mile. That's one lift over one jump. That's one braking point that you were a little bit too deep or a little bit too shallow. I mean, these guys are spot on. Ken's driving the best he's ever driven. Brandon he's on fire right now. And I don't feel like we're driving bad, but we got to figure out where to go faster because right now this isn't going to get it done.
David, I think the comments there from Travis, I think they show just how much of a battle he knows he's got on his hands this year. He does lead the championship.
Yeah.
But to maintain that lead and to put together a title challenge, he knows he has to find something more. But is he being a little hard on himself, do you think?
I think he is. You know, he's defending champion into this year. There's a whole bunch of reasons from the top of the season that we've talked about already, but 4.1 seconds down after the first 2 stages, it's not the end of the world. But the trouble is, a guy like Travis he is that elite athlete that wants to be absolutely right at the top. You know, and we're going to see this consistently, that he is striving for everything. And the worst thing is that he's got his teammate alongside him who is finding that time, taking that time in what the perception would be in a slightly worse position on the road. I think he's been very harsh on himself. He was exactly the same earlier throughout the year. You know, he's consistently talked as well about the fact that there are these 3 or 4 or 5 drivers that he doesn't feel that he's up there with. A little bit hard on himself.
You know, as a driver, you have to continually be looking to improve, though. You can never rest on your laurels, David. Never. It doesn't matter how good your car is.
Every day's a school day,
you've got to look
isn't it?
internally, haven't you? Every day is a school day. So out from service, 3 more stages to go. South Arm, Beaver Pond, Icicle Brook. Plenty of action to come, David.
Absolutely. Just, again, great names, great names. And the first stage out of service seemed to go well, but then there were problems around the corner for Ken, weren't there?
There really were problems around the corner for Ken. We caught up with him just before the final stage of the day. This is what his co-driver, Alex Gelsomino, had to say.
Intercom failure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we did the entire 5 miles without using hand signal. We think we got it fixed, but we'll see now.
Oh, David, it's never easy. It's never easy. An intercom problem. Now, there are various options when you have intercom problems. Talk us through those.
So initially, you've always got 2 ports in the helmet and on the belt where you actually fasten them. Oh yeah, it's on the belt, it's not on the helmet. So you would automatically take the lead out, try the other port. They did that. It didn't. It was actually a problem within the crash helmet. But we've seen in days past, Cole, you know, from one stage to the next, if the co-driver can hear the driver, but the driver can't hear the co-driver, they'll swap helmets.
Absolutely.
But clearly, it was a problem in both helmets. We don't know. You simply couldn't hear. They couldn't hear. So you do then revert to these hand signals, which you see a lot. You know, there are intercom problems are not rare in the sport, and then a crew would have a set procedure for when these issues happen.
That was going to be my question. Will they have talked about this beforehand at some point, you know, not maybe before each event, but they'll have practiced, this is what we do, this is what these...
Yeah,
It'll be a bit like sign language. There will be definite...
Yeah.
It's not like we'll just make it up. You know?
Usually it is, you know, it could be a 6th gear corner, and they'll use, in it, the first point of the note is the speed related port. So it's a 3 or a 2 or a 1, whatever, so that the driver instinctively knows, crikey, it's a 1. And, you know, there'd usually be quite a lot of that to bring the speed down. You know, it's also worth saying, Alex Gelsomino is one of the most respected and experienced co-drivers in the world. And we are absolutely privileged to work with both Alex Gelsomino and Rihanna Gelsomino here at DirtFish. And if you want a genuine insight, they obviously, through their company, Oz Rally Pro, they do a selection of courses at DirtFish, September the 3rd and 4th. You might want to check the date.
It's all on the website.
All on the website. You can pay, you join the course, 2-day course, and you get the most astonishing insight from Rhea and Alex about exactly from the very, very basics all the way through. And they'll cover this. They'll talk about intercom failure.
Absolutely. And it's, do you know what? With co-driving, it's much like when you learn to drive. You know, you might think, oh, I don't need a driving instructor. You do.
You needed a driving instructor. The stories you told me.
To absolutely get the basic principles right. And there are basic principles of co-driving. Unless you get them right from the start, you can spend years, years trying to work out where the problems are. Get on one of these courses, absolutely set yourself up, prepare yourself for either a career or, for a lot of people, as we know, it's not a career necessarily.
At any level, Cole, you know, we've been through the sort of syllabus of what we are. You and I are going to take one of these courses, hopefully September. It might be tricky with a lot of other stuff going on.
Who's driving? Who's co-driving?
No, we're both co-driving. Yeah, we're both co-driving.
We know who'll be best at that.
Me, obviously.
I've seen your navigation. It's awful.
Just turn true, actually. You are
left, Colin. Turn left, David. That's your right.
No, what I'm saying is turn left. Turn left. But no.
Anyway, we have to say it was a wonderful effort from Ken and Alex. They lost time, not too much time. This is what they had to say at the end of the opening day.
Well, obviously, because our system is a 1-6 system, you have to use your fingers to, pretty much call the corner degrees, with your fingers. So a 6 becomes a thumbs up, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It becomes more complicated when you have to describe things like don't cut or stay in, so you need to sort of like, but at the end I ask Ken, did I do a good job calling it with my hands? And he said, yeah, you did the best you could. So we minimized our loss of time, but still we lost 18 seconds on Beaver Pond and a handful of seconds on Icicle Brook. It's okay, it's part of the game. Tomorrow is a different day, a new day, so we're looking forward to start again.
Isn't that fascinating? It's only happened twice in Alex's career, and David, both times on the same event.
Yeah, a little bit of a jinx that stage, I think. But yeah, as we said, it's all about hand signals, and it did cost them. Thick end of 22 seconds. It's a chunk of time, isn't it?
So yeah, Ken Block finding himself 21.3 seconds behind our rally leader, Brandon Semenuk.
Yeah, day one was great. I mean, definitely some areas where we could have improved, but overall we had a good rhythm. Say fast on most stages, was drama free for us, like no big moments or anything like that, so I think that's a big part of why we had a good day. But yeah, last stage was great. We had really good rhythm, we started the day great, ended the day great, so that's kind of hopefully carry that into tomorrow now and see how it goes. We got a big day tomorrow. Obviously the stages get a lot rougher, and it's going to be managing the car a bit, so anything can happen at this point. I think the rally really starts tomorrow, but it's always nice to get that good feeling in the car.
Yeah, really super job from Brandon on day one, David. He is the most consistent of drivers.
Absolutely, and just the most calm driver as well. And, you know, we've talked a lot there about the issues that Ken had with the intercom. They would have cost him time, but equally, you've got to stack that against a really clean, smart drive from Semenuk to get through that day, quickest at the start, quickest at the end. He is a very, very intelligent guy, you know, and absolutely a super brave guy when you consider what else he does, you know, on a mountain bike coming down the side of a mountain. He's, for me, one of the most interesting characters. Certainly somebody that I spent a little bit of time, just a small amount of time with him in Southern Ohio. But with Keaton Williams, you know, really strong partnership that's really working very, very well. Somebody that I would like to learn more and talk more to.
Do you know what? I think it's worth talking more to him because he's still very much a driver in terms of his rallying experience, who's in his infancy.
Oh, completely.
You know,
this was what makes it so impressive, Colin. He's not
so
done
exciting,
a lot.
so exciting about how much better he can become.
But in some ways as well, you know, quite frustrating because as much as we are all about ARA, and as much as you know, it is a fantastic championship. I would love to bring someone like Brandon Semenuk to the World Championship and just see where he's at. You know, we saw all those
Not in a World Rally car, in a Rally 2 car.
In a Rally 2 car.
Yeah.
You know, there was a guy, Nicolas Voyos, who was a fantastic rally driver and was numerous times he won downhill mountain bike World Championship and World Cups. There is that crossover, and it's fascinating. It would be great to see. So if anybody's got a Rally 2 car out there, give it to Brandon Semenuk.
We'd love to see it.
Yeah.
Now, as we talked about at the top of the show, lots of different classes represented here at the New England Forest Rally. Let's look at some of the action from those classes on day one.
Don't accept it. 100. Left 4 plus. 4 left. Oh. Left 6.
So a blindingly fast day one here at the New England Forest Rally. David, these stages, they are fast stages, there's no question about that. That's what typifies this event. The organisers, though, they've had to go to, I was going to say extreme measures, they're not extreme measures, but they've had to take measures to bring the average speed down. Virtual chicanes is what they've introduced. Talk to us about those.
And just to put a bit of context around that, Colin, you know, they are fast. They're nice, double width, wide roads, a lot like Finland, a lot of really quick crests. And we're looking at, you know, some stages are sort of 75, 80 miles an hour average speed. The fastest average speed on a WRC round is 78.3, was it? And Chris Meek in Finland in 16. So they are right up there in terms of speed. And of course, there are insurance implications that you have to bring these average speeds down. The governing body of American Motorsport would dictate you can't have ridiculous speeds. We've seen all of this in WRC. You're right, you know, they're using these virtual chicanes where you slow the car right down to an agreed limit, and then away you go again.
Virtual chicane is approaching.
What is this?
Tightens and virtual chicane starts and brake, brake, brake. More, 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 more. More, and go, go, go.
I find all of this a complete nonsense, a total nonsense. And you know, we've
Why?
Come on, Cole. We've been through all of this.
What would you rather have?
When we drove
hay bales?
No, find smaller roads. Find smaller roads.
That is the perfect answer. Not always possible. So no, that is the perfect answer.
We've agreed before. We've never said it's
not
perfect.
always possible. It's not always possible.
Then
if it's not possible, what do you do?
Different stage. You know, I don't like all of this. In Finland, they ruined some great stages. And in fairness, in Finland, they actually did a really good job because they tried to avoid the bales and they would take them onto the triangle, wouldn't they?
I don't agree with this at all. I think, you know, we've seen in the past hay bales used. Now, hay bales, they're a bit arbitrary. You know, they're there to start of the stage, but they get moved, they get nudged, they get, you know, moved out the way, they get moved into the
Colin,
line.
it doesn't make the stage inherently less dangerous. It just means in one straight section, you've slowed down, you've gone again.
But that
into the next corner.
David,
if there is an issue with the safety of the stage, there is an issue with the safety of the stage.
But it's not safety. You've already said that
it's the high speed.
It's the high speed, it's the average speed, it's
so
the
then
insurance implications.
So what's the problem with high speed, Colin? Is it not dangerous? Is it not the perception that it is? Does it added danger with higher
I
speed?
refer you to the answer you gave earlier. You talked about insurances. You talked about the fact they're not allowed to exceed
absolutely
it.
so.
It's purely to meet a regulation. It's nothing to do with safety. It can be to do with certain sections of the stages passing certain sensitive areas. You have to slow the cars
and
down.
safety,
But,
because you look
but
at...
it's not to do with safety.
But it is. You know, look
nothing
at
to
some
do
of
with
those
safety.
corners. Remember in Dovey, when you get right up onto the top, there was a huge drop. Literally, as Ari Vatanen would have said, your clothes would have been out of fashion by the time you hit the bottom. You know, it was massive. And they put bales, they put chicanes and everything in front of that. For me, it spoils... Okay, I admit, you know, there is issues. The issue is regulatory, it's insurance. But inherently, it is a safety aspect that they're bringing the speed down. They're trying to contain speeds. You're looking at me very funny.
I don't agree with you.
Okay.
They're trying to contain average speeds.
They're trying to contain
not
average
ultimate
speed. But
speeds.
equally, the average speed is affected by the extremities of the speed, isn't it? They don't want cars sitting on the rev limiter at 130, 140 miles
David
an hour.
and I, we do love these sorts of debates. David is absolutely right in a lot of what he says. I can sometimes be right in some of what I say.
But what I would say is it spoils the flow. That's, for me,
no question.
That's the issue.
No
and
question.
if there is another way of doing that, taking it onto a smaller road,
You
of
would
course
always go with
you know,
that
we're
option.
not teaching the organisers to suck eggs here. They know exactly, and they take a balanced decision that, okay, we could take this stage over there, we could put it over there, but actually that road's not as nice, so let's just tolerate a slow zone or whatever. And crikey, I'm
it's interesting.
exhausted
It's really
myself
interesting.
there, Colin.
Really interesting. But these are virtual safety zones, virtual chicanes.
Yeah.
Now, how do you deal with them? For me, it does introduce another element of strategy. David and I clearly like to talk about things. It's better, though, to talk to someone who actually knows what they're talking about. And who better to talk to other than one of our very own DirtFish instructors. She was on the event. She had to deal with the virtual chicanes. It's Michelle Miller.
I have to admit, I miss the old school driving through hay bales to get us slowed down. But I understand from an organizer perspective why this new version of the chicane works so well. Easy to monitor, don't need extra volunteers, and it gets us slowed down where we need to be safe and to cut overall speed for stages. As far as strategy for them, you know, you can't really trick the system as much as we might try, so you just got to get the car slowed. Sometimes the area is pretty short. We might even start slowing before we get into the chicane, as long as we get down to that 20 mile an hour speed, you know, once we're in that zone. I wish there was a way to, you know, anticipate when it's going to hit that 20 miles an hour, but there's not. The best thing you can do is just slow down nice and smooth, hit those brakes, get it slowed down in a straight line so that you're ready to accelerate out once you hit your mark.
So fascinating day one here then at the New England Forest Rally. What lies ahead for day two? Well, it's a chunky day, isn't it? 10 stages we have ahead of us. 80 miles or so of competitive action. It all got underway nice and early. So David, going in today to Ken Block is very much the Hyundai in the Subaru sandwich. He's not looking at Pastrana behind him though, looking at Semenuk in front of him.
100%. He's chasing, isn't he? He's 22 odd seconds behind, and he wants to win. It is difficult. He comes to New England on the back of a win in Oregon, Southern Ohio, so he's on a hat trick. And he's got momentum with him. We've seen in the World Championship, when you've got that momentum, that wind in your sails, Kalle Rovanpera's sailed on through. So Ken will absolutely want to be capitalising on that. And he makes an incredible start, doesn't he, to Saturday morning, really charging hard.
Really does. Takes, well, a handful of seconds out of Semenuk. Still some work to do. But is he thinking more about the win here or the championship?
Day two started off well. Just I knew that was a tricky stage that would work well with this car, so I really focused really hard on putting in a good time, and it worked out well. I took 6 out of Brandon, which is more than I was expecting to start off the morning, so things have gone well, and then I took another 3 out of him in this last one, so I'm down about 12 seconds down. So you can only take so much risk. We're in it for the championship. So I'd rather finish second than DNF. So I'm going quick, but going safe.
Well, 2 more stages to go in the morning loop on day 2 here, David. That's quite interesting. Ken Block has never really been one. He reminds me a lot of Colin McRae. It is all about the wins. He's not really interested in much else, but showing some degree of maturity is not the right word, because we wouldn't expect anything less than that from Ken Block. Some degree of strategy, perhaps.
But it has to be, doesn't it? You know, for so many years, for so long, Ken Block has wanted to win America's Premier Rally Championship. He's done so much in his career. He's done some WRC, and of course he's done the Gymkhana thing. You know, all of our children around the world, generations around the world, immediately know Ken Block because of Gymkhana. And that's great. You know, that's brought him tremendous wealth and recognition. But what he wants is a championship.
Titles.
And he
Titles.
knows. And to not have won an American championship probably hurts a little bit. So much as he wants to win these rallies, he knows very, very well. Let's not forget, team manager at Hoonigan Racing is Derek Dauncey, one of the most absolutely experienced guys in the whole world of rallying. He'll be telling Ken, you know, you've got to score this many points on every round. Let's get to that point, and so Derek will absolutely be in his ear telling him, don't forget, championship all the way.
No question about that whatsoever. 5 stages in the loop before service. As we've seen in the first couple of stages, Block is doing the right thing. Can he continue that momentum?
Well, New England Forest Rally it's difficult. It just always is. And mechanical issues, tire issues, everything happens here. So I knew that I just needed a good clean morning and put some pressure on these guys, and can't trust what these guys are doing. They're too fast. So I gotta keep on pace and keep the pressure on, and you know, I only gotta win by 1/10, you know, so I'm gonna keep pushing all the way to the end.
So Ken Block, David, clearly pushing hard. He went into that lunchtime service on day 2, having won every stage on Saturday morning.
Wasn't it? Perfect way to bounce back, and 3.4 seconds or something like that behind Semenuk, so setting up for a really interesting afternoon.
Really interesting afternoon. Semenuk, first on the road though Saturday morning. Do we think that held him back at all?
First loop of the day, it was pretty good. We were first on the road, so a bit of sweeping duty. Not terrible times considering. We managed to kind of hang in there. Obviously Ken pulled some time out of us. Luckily we don't have to sweep on the next pass, and hopefully we can keep the battle going.
But the one person who has very much dropped out of that battle for the win was Travis Pastrana. He had problems. Let's hear from him.
Started off pretty good. A little over-aggressive on the first stage, but just trying to do what we can. Second stage, I think we tied Ken for the lead. Like, really felt good. Solid. Nothing too special. Just this car's working awesome. The third stage today, we put her off. I made some very optimistic notes. Some of our maxes definitely were not maxes. I got pretty lucky, and then on the fan area, just basically backed it into the woods. Luckily, I was able to restart and didn't hit anything too big and popped right back out of the woods. Probably lost, 12 seconds-ish in the whole thing, which wasn't bad at all. Next stage felt great, and then our turbo blew. So it was like last year, everything went right. This year has been rougher. And then luckily, Derek, we found one of the drivers, actually Leah's co-driver's brother, is a mechanic, so he helped us get back going when we blew the turbo. The car was on fire and we were trying to figure everything out. We weren't going to be able to even transit the last stage, and he was able to unplug basically the oil line to the turbo, and we're here. So we're in no man's land in third, but now we're going to use it as a test. The wing works great until the front tires kind of go, and then we're real bad understeer, so we're going to see if we can make some improvements. Hopefully go into a jib way fire, and we got to win the power stage today, so we can try that too.
Well, it's now very much a two-way fight for the lead between Ken Block and Brandon Semenuk. 3.3 seconds, David. 5 stages to go, 40 miles to go. Set up beautifully.
And absolutely now we're going to see a true test, aren't we, of how much Ken is thinking about a championship, how much he's thinking about that hat-trick of wins, the third win on the bounce. Set up beautifully. But one of the crucial bits, Brandon talked a lot there about the cleaning. We're a day further away from that rain that had hit the area on the Thursday. The roads had dried a bit. They were cleaning. We could see that. And as you go through into the second run, obviously the roads are swept, but we know very well that it does sweep a different line as you get two-wheel drive cars coming behind the open class four-wheel drive cars, they create a different line, and they can sometimes even create a sort of tram line effect.
Ruts in strange places at times. This is a fast rally. Ruts won't be too much.
But it's
of a
also
problem.
quite strange in that something we don't see too much in Europe is they reverse the stage.
Yeah.
So it's gone north to south one way, then it goes south to north or whatever, and that changes the aspect of the sweeping and the cleaning and stuff.
Yeah.
It can put a lot of loose on the line.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's fascinating stuff this afternoon. But Semenuk, with it all to do to keep a charging block behind him, David, he hit back immediately after service.
Certainly did. A great time. And I think there is that thing, isn't it, when you've lost a lot of stages, when you've been second quickest or whatever, and you really want to get and re-engage into that fight. And also there is a psychological aspect that he's onto a slightly cleaner road, so just crack on.
Yeah, just crack on. That's what we've seen this afternoon on the final day of the New England Forest Rally. It's a real ding-dong battle for the win here, David.
It is, or even a dong-ding battle, Colin. It's fabulous. As we said, Semenuk hit back, but then immediately blocked straight back on it. Quickest on the next one, quickest again on the following stage to actually take the lead, which was incredible. Probably the first time he'd led through that.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting situation, an interesting scenario, David, because they are watching the times. They will know the times before they go into each stage. And Block does seem to have been measuring his approach to this rally. You know, when Brandon put that time in with, 5 stages to go to increase his lead, does look as if Block thought, OK, now's the time. If I'm going to throw caution to the wind, can't leave it much longer, because they're quite short stages.
They are, and I'm not sure when you've got these sort of high frequency of stages coming quickly. We've already talked a lot about Derek talking to him and all that stuff. But equally, when you go in stage, they say, do you just jump in and go as hard as you can? Yeah,
I don't know.
I would say in that group of stages there, Block knew that he had to get that time back, and he did that. And he was back. He was into the lead with 2 stages to go, and then we went into that final stage with the 2.9 between them. I mean, it was an absolute thriller, Colin.
I think the psychology of it must be quite interesting because, you know, he'd lost that time on the opening day, Ken Block, and he'd lost the time mainly because of the intercom problems. He'd come out Saturday, he'd won every stage, and he must have thought, yeah, this is right, I'm doing the right things here, I've got the right approach, I'm measuring, I'm not taking...
that.
And then service, and then Semenuk comes right back out and takes a great stage win.
Yeah.
And then what's Block thinking? What is he thinking? Do I go back to this measured approach, or do I throw it all to the wind? As you're saying, you know, I think he probably did. And what we had was we had this great battle, and then David, it was all set up beautifully for the final stage.
It absolutely set up beautifully. Ken went into that last stage with a 2.9 second lead, and now we were genuinely going to see, 2.9 seconds is not a lot. You are going to be pushing. It's a power stage as well, isn't it?
So, extra points.
So extra points.
And it's a short little stage, wasn't it? Was it 6 kilometres, 4 miles?
4 miles,
that
not
final
a lot.
stage.
And equally, you'd look at it and say 2.9 seconds in 4 miles. It's a big ask, isn't it?
Yeah, but then, David, we had possibly one of the most dramatic, exciting, controversial stages that we've seen in a very long time in the ARA.
We did. Of course, there was a huge amount of dust around. As we've talked about, Colin, it had rained on the Thursday, but then it had been dry, windy, dry conditions, always going to dry the gravel out, around temperatures around 80 degrees. It got dusty. It got really, really dusty. And in some sections of that final stage, quite twisty, in the trees, it's not going to clear.
It hangs. Now, one of the other factors, which is unusual, David's already mentioned this, we have reverse stages here. Stages had already been run once that morning in the opposite direction. Now, what does that mean? Normally, you would say, well, the first pass is where you get the real big problem with the dust, because eventually the dust goes, because the loose gravel goes, you get down to the harder surface, and there is less dust. But, as you pointed out, reversing in the opposite direction, all that dust is still there or thereabouts.
All the gravel's still around.
The gravel's still around, but in a different place. But it's a different place, different lines. It was there again.
And they are quite soft stages. Brandon, it's this, this perennial debate, isn't it? Do you go first on the road, get clear air, or do you get a cleaner road and go further back on the road? There is always stuff that you can do. You can fiddle with the times. You can check into the arrival time control in a stage late, take a 10-second penalty. That wasn't an option for Ken Block with such a short stage. if he'd taken that 10-second penalty and got the extra minute of clear air, he would have been quicker, but would he have been the necessary sort of 7 seconds quicker? I don't think he would. So he couldn't do it. Travis could do it, but the guy in the box seat was Brandon Seminook, first on the road, still going to have some cleaning, but he wasn't going to have any dust.
And he made the most of that situation to take an unbelievable win. Let's hear from him at the end of the rally.
Well, I did what I could.
Pardon?
I did what I could, mate.
Yeah.
We made it.
Good job.
That was a big push. Oh, I'm stoked. That was an awesome win. That was like insane. I was blown away that we got that time, to be honest. I would have been stoked on even getting like second in the power stage, or obviously max points, but it was to max points and get enough to actually take those seconds back from Ken. Can't even believe it. Speechless.
So a lot of the Subaru guys have obviously been talking about Ken's car and the advantage it has over what you guys have. I mean, after this, they're afraid of you and you seem to be afraid of them. Do you think that there's kind of a mutual respect, or?
I've never driven the car, so I don't know, but I guarantee he didn't drive as hard as me this rally.
Well, many congratulations to Brandon. A dramatic end to that rally. A wonderful win for Brandon and Keaton Williams. But, David, Ken Block, well, he wasn't a happy man.
He wasn't a happy man. And we've debated this pretty much solidly since the whole thing broke. And I can understand his frustrations. It's very difficult. Immediately you jump out of the car, you're still wound up, you're still pretty hot. His comments are totally understandable, born out of absolute frustration. And it's easy for us to sit here now, calmly, a few days after the event and say, Clark, of course, should have given him an extra minute. It's unsafe.
Which is what he asked for.
It's what he asked for. There are reasons why the Clark, of course, wouldn't have done that. You can go to dirtfish.com. You can read all of those reasons. Very, very valid reasons. You're in rally control. You're also making decisions on very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And you have to consider so much.
Yeah. You're considering the whole field. You're not considering just one or two drivers.
That's the point, because if it's unfair on Ken Block, it's unfair on your man right at the back. You can soon string the field out. Ultimately, I hate to say this, but the drivers are the ultimate arbiters of their own speed. If they're not happy, lift off the throttle, give it a bit of brake, slow down. If you're genuinely concerned, yes, I understand Ken Block is in the middle of a massive fight for a rally win, a championship. It's huge. But at some point, these things go round and come round, don't they?
They do.
And that's really, it's difficult, because I once put this exact point to Chris Meek when we were in Acropolis Rally, and they were running in the dark.
Oh yeah.
In the dusk.
Yeah.
And Chris Meek came out and said it was like somebody throwing a duvet over the windscreen. Yeah. And I was like, well, slow down. Yeah. And he went absolutely bananas, and understandably.
Not the only time he went bananas at you.
But not the only time. No. And it was understandable. But in the cold light of day, you have to consider the bigger picture, that the organisers take decisions. We stand by those decisions, 100%. And we have to accept. And ultimately, as I said, I can understand Ken's frustration. What gets me a little bit here is that, and Ken was the first to say this, that Brandon drove his ass off.
He did.
He absolutely did. And this somehow, it takes a little bit of the shine off what's been a magnificent third win for Brandon Seminook and Keaton Williams.
It really does. We're not really talking about that. We are talking about Ken Block. Let's hear what he had to say at the end of the event.
I got screwed because of dust. So lost a race because of dust.
So they've got a 2-minute gap then. Were you experiencing more dust than you had been on the recent stages?
Yeah, we'd already been complaining about the dust, and they didn't do anything, and we went into the evening where there's no wind at all, and on a power stage where you want people battling for overall wins. For the stage, that's the incentive. Extra points. Travis actually put in extra time trying to win that stage. We had no chance. So it's real unfortunate. Alex and I put in a great effort, and unfortunately we weren't given the opportunity to try and keep the win at the end.
Yeah, look, the frustration is evident and is clear for all the reasons that David's mentioned. What I would like to say is that stage didn't cost him the rally. That's nonsense.
It's
my
the
view.
Intercom.
The Intercom cost him the rally.
Yeah.
We're talking about a handful of seconds. He lost nearly 22, 23 seconds minimum with that intercom issue. So, you know, I'm with you, David. I think we have to 100% respect the decisions made in very difficult circumstances by the clerks of the course, by the chief stewards, by whoever it is that's feeding in to that decision-making process. It's a difficult one. They make it.
It is dangerous, and drivers very quickly reach for that safety. That word safety. It's dangerous, and it is. If it is, then slow down.
Slow down. Slow down. The only way to deal with it is to slow down. What is guaranteed is this debate will rage on, because it's not the only time that we're going to see these issues, and they will want to set protocols that are perhaps.
But I've just got to jump in here and say sorry.
It's probably more interesting than the point I was going to make. So I will give way again.
But Ken is not the only guy who had issues in the dust. We saw drivers go off. We saw them crash. These guys aren't coming to the organisers now and saying, you should have given us the extra time. We wouldn't have crashed then, and they've damaged their cars and all of that. I know,
and it's cost them a fortune. A lot of them,
absolutely.
There's all sorts of,
and it's cost. Ken feels it's cost him the win, and arguably the pace that he set when he did slow down in those dust, it did cost him the win, because for sure there's 0.9 of a second in one or two of those dust clouds, and we can see from Travis who took the extra time. Still, it's horrible when you are absolutely pedal to the metal and you come into those sections, and the trouble is you come into them. And then as soon as you're into them, you don't know how long it's going to last. So, yes, the argument is that you drive to the pace notes. And it's the same with fog. Inconsistency.
It's a shame. It's a real shame. Yeah. We should just be
Sorry,
talking
I've gone
about
on a little
glorious.
bit there as well.
No, and that's the issue. That's the issue, is that we are still talking about it when we should be talking about a great effort from Subaru USA. They've come with these aero upgrades. How much they've added to this victory, well, who knows? But it certainly seems to have worked positively for them. The most consistent driver in the championship, you might argue Semenuk has done another wonderful job out there. Hasn't put a foot wrong, hasn't got stressed.
Even the level of driving today, it was the best battle in ARA history, bar none. To finish that off 9/10. Don't even. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Now, again, we have seen a number of different classes here. Let's just take a look through some of our different classes and look at some of the highs, some of the lows, some of the wins, some of the losses. Our winners in two-wheel drive, Tracy Gardner and Tabitha Lord in the Yaris. In LN4, our winners, Klim Fedov and Oscar Romero. Our regional winners in overall and naturally aspirated four-wheel drive, that was Dylan Gondike and Ben Chung. In open two-wheel drive, it was Derek James and KJ Miller who came out on top. In limited two-wheel drive, Chris Sir and Martin Headland. One after a penalty was handed down to Jesse Witzel. In limited four-wheel drive, congratulations to our winners Margaret Sharon and Jenny Holden. And our open four-wheel drive regional winners, Tyler Saunders and Scott Carlson. So let's have a look at our overall top 10 then at the end of the New England Forest Rally. So that wonderful victory for Brandon Semenuk means that he moves to the top of the standings in the ARA presented by DirtFish with 4 rounds to go. Still a three-way battle, still 9 points separating our top 3 drivers. There's just been a bit of a change around. Now, we also obviously had our regional championship running here. Let's have a look at the standings in our regional championship. Well, it's been once again a fantastic rally here in New England. David, your thoughts at the end of a really entertaining and, well, slightly controversial week of rallying.
Another great one, isn't it? And it absolutely tees it up for Ojibwe next, and the championship. We talked at the top of the show about a little bit of needle. There is, I think, a little bit of needle. There's massive respect between the top 3 drivers and between all of the crews all the way down the field. But yeah, this championship is definitely hotting up. It's getting hotter and hotter and hotter.
Well, we move on from here to Minnesota for the Ojibwe Forest Rally in the middle of August. But before we get there, David, a few final words from you.
You remembered. I wondered if you'd remember that I had some final words, not the last word. But just I wanted to say a big thank you. We wanted to say a big thank you to everybody who has sent their footage in. We're really grateful. We're trying to do things a little bit differently with our ARA reviews. We can't do them without you. So enormous thanks again, and let's have some more for Ojibwe. We've got some more Colin's got some ideas of some more stuff to come into the program in Ojibwe. Not all great ideas, but some of them will make it through.
That's the burden of being a creative genius. Not everything is great. Folks, as David has said, thank you very, very much for all of your onboards, all of your action footage from stage side. I tell you what we'll do as we say goodbye from this, our review of the New England Forest Rally. We'll leave you with some of those wonderful onboards, some of that wonderful action. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you again in a few weeks' time.
Jumps down into 6 right and 5 left.